You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. It's 3 minutes past the hour of 7 p.m. in Dakar and Abidjan, 8 p.m. in Port Novo and Abuja. Thank you for staying with WADR for the live special broadcast of the 2025 presidential election in Cote d'Ivoire. We have in the last 12 hours brought you updates of the voting process in Cote d'Ivoire and other polling centers from Accra to Dakar, where a total of 8.7 million eligible voters were expected to cast their vote. As a reminder, WADR is on satellite, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English, and equally on YouTube. I'm Abdullahi Hassan, welcoming you to the fourth and last edition of Cote d'Ivoire Decides right here on 94.9 FM. I'm Abdullahi Hassan, and with me in the studio is Sankuli Janko. Good evening, Sankuli.
Yes, good evening, Abdullahi Hassan. Like you rightly said, Cote d'Ivoire's contentious polls open actually at 8 a.m. local time and closed at 6 p.m. at 25,678 polling stations across the country and abroad, the commission said. And among that, you have some 120,178 Ivorians are expected to cast their ballots in 308 offices set up in diplomatic and consular representations, because everyone has to be included to have the opportunity to exercise your civic right. And Abdullah, provisional results will be announced within 5 days, and the final validation will be done by the Constitutional Council as per the law. According to the Electoral Code, a candidate must secure more than 50% of the votes to win outright. 5 candidates are in the race, including incumbent President Alassane Ouattara. Others are, of course, Simone Bagbo, a former First Lady, Don Melo, once a spokesperson for former President Laurent Gbagbo, former Commerce Minister Jean-Louis Billon, and Henry Lago of the Ivorian Popular Front. Well, analysts say Ouattara is likely to win a 4th term in office after changing the constitution in 2016 to remove presidential term limits.
Well, in addition to what analysts have said, they believe that the 83-year-old won the 2020 presidential election with 94% of the vote. So election has been marked by political tension after key opposition figures were barred from contesting, prompting protests in the south of the country, a traditional opposition stronghold. Gbagbo of the opposition African People's Party of Ivory Coast, PPACI, was barred from taking part in the election over a criminal conviction, and former Credit Suisse chief executive Tijan Cham was disqualified due to a dual nationality issue. In power since 2011, Ouattara has projected himself as the candidate most committed to youth welfare, called on the country's youth to vote in large numbers. He has promised to address the country's security and economic challenges. 2 key sectors, Sankuli: security and economic.
Well, we are not the experts here. The experts are there, but some expert will tell you, well, if you look at the economic front, which you've highlighted, there seem to be improvements. That's what they said. And according to stats also, Ivory Coast is one of the fastest growing economies in the sub-region as well.
It is. And I mean, the second largest, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana when it comes to cocoa production. And they also right now are exploring the area of liquefied natural gas. So you never know.
But as always, of course, the opposition leaders criticize government for failing to address inequality.
And the high cost
of living.
This is the general debate everywhere you go today, Soundclay. The debate is the same.
Well, as expected, the opposition will always have a different opinion.
True.
The government will say this, the opposition, but that's the beauty of democracy, Abdullahi.
Everyone is entitled to his or her opinion, right?
Indeed.
Now, WADR's Francis Boniface in Abidjan spoke with Blessing Ruth Okudia, an election observer in Cote d'Ivoire, and this is what she had to say.
Now, today's election in Cote d'Ivoire, and interestingly, there are 2 female candidates on the ballots today. What do you make of that?
When the elephants fight, we watch. We don't wait. We don't look at the grass to suffer. We watch. However, this is an election. It's a game of numbers. The better person wins.
But do you think having 2 female candidates on the ballot helps the movement trying to bring women into politics?
A whole lot, and we are very happy to see that. It's rare. We're very happy to see that. Okay, give the women a chance. Give them a chance. Okay, so we're here to give them our full support, whatever it is, So thank God, we're here, and we'll see what happens.
So in terms of coverage for your organization, are your activities limited to Abidjan, or
no?
You go into the interior of the country?
No, our activities, extended to Danani, which is almost the frontier between Cote d'Ivoire and Liberia. Okay, we are also covering Yamsoko. We are covering close to the border between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. So we're all over the place. We're all over the place. 6-man powered delegation into Cote d'Ivoire. So we're here for business.
Now, in terms of feedback on the ground today, what have you gotten from your colleagues in other parts of Cote d'Ivoire?
All right. So far, there's tranquility all over. Everybody is doing well. Nothing to be afraid about. The security. All observers are well watched. So we are cool. We're doing okay.
And how much of post-election monitoring are you going to do?
A lot. We're going to be here. We've been here before, and we're going to be here after the election.
Well, there you have it, the voice of Francis Boniface, WADR Francis Boniface, I must say, in Abidjan, engaged in the Blessing Ruth Okodia, an election observer in Cote d'Ivoire. And there's something she said, Sankli.
Yes.
I mean, it's fair that she actually had that remark, but still, I mean, it's funny. I kind of smiled when she said, when 2 elephants fight,
we watch.
We only watch.
Only watch.
And she added that even though there were only 2 female candidates, she believes that it's fair enough and believes that it's a good start. And I think it's fair to say it's a good start.
Yes, it's fair to say it's a good start. In most African countries, you rarely see women coming forward, to contest for leadership position, political leadership, particularly the president.
The
presidency. Talking about the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And that, for me, it's a good start. And I think, I'm not here to praise anyone, but it's a good step. It's a good step, and kudos to them for, actually coming up to take that step. I feel is really bold, and like she said, I'm quoting her, it's a good step. Really.
It's a good step.
Yes, it is.
Well, let's move on still here in Dakar and across other 307 polling stations in consular representatives where elections were held in the diaspora for Cote d'Ivoire's election today. Elections closed. Well, depending on the time zone, though. But,
yes.
Where we do have similar time frame, polls closed at 6 p.m. We're here in Dakar. We got to engage a voter by name David. Let's hear what he too has to say.
Hello, my name is Davy Yugbari.
Did you vote?
Yeah, I'm here to vote, and I vote easily.
How was the process?
The process was easily. I came and I just make my choice, and now I go back at home.
Can you tell us what encouraged you to vote?
I'm here to vote because I want to give my opinion from the choice of the president of my country. And it's very important for me, it's very important for the young people to make a choice because the future is now.
How do you think this election will help the young people of Cote d'Ivoire?
This election for the young people of Cote d'Ivoire is beneficial. It's very important to make a choice because the democratic is in the vote, and is today.
Well, democracy is now in default. That's the argument, everyone. Even the most advanced democracies today, not to mention any country in specific, but then we know that democracy is under attack.
Indeed, it is under attack, but all what we can do for us is to hear the people say it themselves. We're here only here to guide, and I'm glad that we have another voter. Of course, hearing from the voter there in the Ivorian embassy in Dakar, we now head to Ghana, where we have another voter to listen to what he has to say.
You voted, and how was the process like for you?
The process was very, very, very good and easy for me. First of all,
it was easy for you, okay. And why was it important for you to participate in this exercise?
Why was important for me? First of all, I'm Ivorian, so I need peace in my country. I need peace.
Okay.
So I have to come like Ivorian, come and vote for my president.
Well, that's a voter there speaking in Ghana, Abdullahi.
Well, just like he has said, and we also had David, explaining why it was important for them to enjoy that civic right. The same thing applies to, in fact, hundreds of thousands of youths in Cote d'Ivoire who came out today to cast their vote, and many of them have justified why they were out there, in as much as we also have a good number of youths that refuse to turn out simply because they assume that the choice has been made already and their count will mean nothing. But let's go to Abidjan now to have the view of these young people who have shared why they went to cast their vote.
Invite all Ivorians to come and vote in mass, in peace and social cohesion.
It is important for me to be here today for the peace of my country, for the stability of my country, for the development of my country.
In previous years, we saw parents come to vote. Today, it's another turn. It's an honor, in fact. It's a pleasure for us. It's our duty.
If we don't vote, it will seem as if we weren't participating in the development of our country. So voting is important, especially for women.
Sankuli, I think the last word I got there is that this is in interest of all women.
Yes, that's what he said, and he was talking about the importance of women.
Participation in politics and governance. I'm thinking we should add that.
Abdullah, for me, it's always fascinating to see that we don't have so many women taking part, or perhaps given the opportunity to, to have those decision-making positions. Because for me, they make decisions. Most of the time they decide who becomes president in most African countries. Like in the case of Gambia, Senegal, most West African countries, because from what I've seen while I was at the Ivorian embassy in Dakar, like I said, I saw more women than men. I saw more women than men.
I think the same thing also in Accra.
Yes.
That was what Nadidi Titi said. But anyway, let me not take us far away from here. But I think for soon enough, we'll see whether or not Tanzania will pass the litmus test. We know that Namibia, they had their first female president.
Yes.
Tanzania will be going to the polls soon.
The reigning president is a lady.
Samia Suluhu Hassan. Let's see if
whether she will retain her position.
Because we need more of that to happen, just so that the world sees that whatever a man can do,
a woman can do better. And Abdullah, at the moment, it seems we have Augustine Coley in the Ivorian embassy in Dakar.
I know he can't wait to say what he has seen. Augustine, good evening.
Augustine, good evening.
Augustine.
Yes, good evening.
How are you today, Augustine?
Well, I'm okay, Abdullah.
And
I guess you're doing pretty well.
Very well, Augustine. I mean, we've been up the whole day bringing West Africans and beyond update about the elections in Cote d'Ivoire and beyond. Now, tell us, we know that polls have closed here in the Ivorian embassy. Please, what can you say?
Keep us up to date.
So right now, ballot counting is ongoing. They have just opened the ballot box, and the prefect of this polling station is counting. It seems he's counting the total number of ballots that was within the ballot box, and I guess there are some observers that I see, because I'm watching now through a transparent glass door where the prefect is counting the ballots, and the the other polling staff, along with an observer, is here. They are watching to see what's going on.
Augustine, when I was at the embassy in the morning, the electoral officer there, that is Baba Kone, did say that, I mean, counting will start immediately after the polls are closed at 6 p.m. Was that the case?
No, this was not the case. And so as I speak to you, the process just began just 2 minutes before you placed the call to me. So it actually should have, because at 6 p.m. on the dot, I went to engage the head of the polling station here, and he said the counting of ballot would have started by 7:45. That's what he initially said to me. So when we waited up to that time, it was 7. When I engaged him again, then he said that will happen within 10 to 15 minutes. And so it has now begun right away.
I mean, excuse me to ask you this again, because in the Ivorian embassy in Dakar there, voting actually was a bit late compared to the official starting time, that is 8 o'clock, because voting really started there at 8:45. Was closing also a bit prolonged to give them more time, hence they started late, or did the polls close actually 6 o'clock dot?
It could be the reason, because perhaps since they started the process lately, so they had to catch up with the time by extending the voting period up to 7 p.m. or 7:15 p.m. But as you said, because you were here this morning and you observed that it didn't start on time, but it didn't also end at 6 p.m. So it ended by 7 o'clock and somewhat 7:10, 7:15.
So, August, let me come in here. I know there's something very traditional or customary to elections in Africa. After polls close and counting commences, you will have different party representatives or officials, or sometimes even electorates hanging around to make sure that their votes count and there's no form of irregularity being recorded or documented. Is that the case in the embassy in Dakar where you are now?
Well, as usual, when there are observers, maybe from party level or NGOs, I guess there will be in the regalia, they will be identified by their tag or their jackets. But what I observe here, only the polling staff have jackets on that you can identify. However, within the counting hall, I see 3 individuals seated. One young lady who I initially engaged, and she said she's a student, and there is 2 other fellow. One is holding a file, and the other is seated on the right hand. They are positioned right towards the next staff, and so the next staff, as they pick the ballot, they can show it to these 3 individuals. But whether they are observers, I don't see ID cards with them. I don't see them in jackets, so I don't really know.
Well, Augustine, just hold on. Let's quickly run to Abidjan, where Francis Boniface is standing by. Good evening, Francis.
Good evening, Abdullahi.
How have you been, Francis?
Yeah, it's been an eventful day, but we're okay.
Obviously, Francis, and many thanks for the good job. I mean, because of you and the good job you're doing and the team in Abidjan, we're able to bring live update minute to minute, hour to hour to West Africans and, I mean, people across the world. Now, Francis, we know that polls have closed in Abidjan. Well, they should have closed. Let me just say that they should have closed by 6 p.m. But do we have reports that some police stations are still open because of one or 2 reasons?
Yeah, there are certain polling stations that are still open, not for any other reason than the fact that voting started a little bit later in those places. And the Electoral Commission had already said that would be the case. So if you started late, obviously you have to finish with everybody on the queue before voting closes. Nobody can be denied of his rights to vote. But in most cases, the majority of the polling stations are closed and counting has already started.
So what is the mood like where counting has commenced? I mean, do you see some kind of tense atmosphere?
I think in Abidjan, one word, and that's relief. Yeah, it's relief. It's a feeling of relief. You have people coming outside on the streets now. You have people, going out, hanging out. At some point in the morning, it looked like a ghost town of some sort. In the afternoon, I think when people became confident that apparently there was no violence, then people started trooping out, and it also reflected at the polling centers because in the morning there were trickles of people, but in the afternoon we started seeing more people come out with the confidence that okay, everywhere was peaceful. They started coming out, and this evening people are out and about. So there is that feeling of relief.
Let me bring you back, Francis, before Abdullah comes in again. You did mention that there are some full polling stations wherein, I mean, of course, so they were late, so they'll have to allow the queue to, the people on the queue to, of course, complete voting. But at what point do they stop others from joining this queue? Because, you never know, in Africa, the queue can continue to prolong.
So it's very easy. It's very easy. We're at the polling station in Cote, when the voting station was supposed to close. So by 6 p.m. local time, the security agents closed the door, the gates to the voting center. So whoever is inside before then can vote, and whoever didn't make it in before 6 p.m. can't vote.
I'm sure, Abdullah, I have a lot of questions for you, but I'm interested to know this. At what point can we start, reading the provisional results on the wall? Because in the case of Ivory Coast, I think the results are pasted on the wall wherein people can start, having ideas as to, who is winning at what polling station.
Yeah, there's a lot going on about this currently. If you go back to what President Alassane Ouattara said after he finished voting, he gave a speech. He said the results will come in tomorrow. He sounded very definite he didn't say the provisional results or anything. The results will come in tomorrow.
That's what he said, right? Yeah,
and that's what he said. But at the same time, we also have the Electoral Commission saying that, of course, it will be provisional. It will come in badges, right? Which normally is the standard practice. So nobody really knows how the results are going to come. But there is this idea that somehow the results are going to start trickling in tomorrow.
Okay, but at that polling station, do you have any idea whether after voting, perhaps they paste the results on the wall in those particular polling stations? Because that's what
at that point they just started the process, so they hadn't gotten to that stage yet of pasting results on the wall. And also the counting process in some places it's probably going to be very tedious because of human resource manpower issues. We were at a polling station where in the polling station you have the president, and then you have 2 secretaries. That is just it, 3 of them. So the 2 secretaries do the counting, the president does the documentation. But it can be very, very challenging for 3 people to go through thousands of votes like that. So it's probably going to take a while. So probably they're going to end up pasting results probably closer to midnight and into the morning.
Right. Abdullah was asking Augustine here in the Ivorian embassy in Dakar whether you have party agents witnessing counting. How is it like in Abidjan there? Is that the case as well? Do you have party agents witnessing counting, or is perhaps a different style over there as well?
Yes, and that there is also a nuance to that because the party agents, sometimes it could be the 5 parties. In certain polling units, it's probably only 2 parties or 3 parties. But at least you have at least 3 parties represented almost everywhere we went. In some places, you could see up to the 5, which are the 5 candidates on the ballot. And for the counting process, it's interesting because when there are about two agents for a party, the polling center, but when it gets to the counting process, only one of the agents can be around during the counting, so they send the other one out. So the party has to nominate which of their agents will go outside and which one will remain for the counting. I think they're trying to prevent people from grouping against the process per se, or going against the process, maybe through collusion or something. Right, so only one party agent during the counting, but 2 were around during the voting.
So, Francis, I have a very good question I think I should be asking at this point, which I think would satisfy the curiosity of many listening right now. Because weeks before the elections, tension was very high, and we had analysts projecting what the outcome of the election would be like. That maybe because Cote d'Ivoire has a bleak history of electoral violence, perhaps this will turn out the same. But unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, it turned out almost peacefully. What measures would you say were put in place by the authority that guaranteed this success?
I think yes, the authorities, there was that security posturing and having the 44,000 security forces deployed, but I don't think it was really principally due to that. I think that played its part, but I wouldn't think that was the main reason. I think it's actually the Ivorian people. I think it's actually the spirit of the Ivorian people. I think it's actually the fact that this is one country where there is a generation that is not too old to remember about how difficult war is. So anybody in their 30s, anybody close to 40, as young as that, remembers the Civil War very well.
And so
it is not a distant thought. It's not, people don't need to be reminded about how bad war can be. So I think people were really wary and don't want to find themselves in that position again. No matter what the economic situation is, no matter what the social situation is, people would rather just have peace than be in war.
So do you think that the statement hours before the polls today by former president and disqualified candidate Laurent Gbagbo helped to ease tension?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
I mean, Laurent Gbagbo weeks before now they had this joint opposition coalition known as the Common Front, PPACI and PDCI, and they had called on youth to protest against Ouattara's candidacy and the non-inclusion or inclusivity of the election process. But hours before the elections, Gbagbo reversed his statement, urging youth rather to stay away from the street. Do you think that helped?
I think that played a part, definitely. It kind of played a part to douse tensions, probably in Abidjan, because the disturbances largely were in Yamoussoukro and elsewhere, not necessarily in Abidjan. There were pockets in Abidjan, but it wasn't too serious. So I think that doused tension, especially in Abidjan, where that people have access to information. People would have followed what Laurent Gbagbo said and all that. I think that really helped to douse tensions also in the urban areas.
And finally, Francis, before we let go of you, has there been any statement from any of the international election observation mission? Because we know EU is there. You also have ECOWAS and I think the Francophone organization. So has there been any statement from these observers?
Yeah, those will be coming out between today, this evening, and tomorrow. Right now, there hasn't really been any concrete statement officially from these organizations.
Okay, then. Sam Kule, any last word?
Oh, no, just like to say thank you greatly, Francis, for the good job, honestly, for that you are really, really providing us, updating us on issues happening in Abidjan over there.
And thank you for the coordination from Dakar.
Merci beaucoup, Francis. At this point, I'm French. Merci beaucoup. Okay, Augustine, let's have your words before we connect elsewhere. How are you, Augustine? What's happening? Where are we at? And when are the results from the polls today? When are we expecting the outcome of the result, the elections?
Yes, I'm still here, Abdullah. So the vote counting is still ongoing. What I'm observing right now is there is a board, and the various candidates through their parties are being listed, and as a polling staff calls the number and it is shown to those that are around, then one of them will mark it according to the vote, and that will be marked on the board. That's what's ongoing right now. But it is ongoing smoothly for now, but it has not reached a final conclusion right now. They are distinguishing the votes right now as compared to the initial one.
And so when do we hope for them to conclude vote count?
Well, it determines the number of ballot papers because we will just really have to know at the end. But we can estimate 30 minutes from now with the level of speed that's been put into it, and so far smoothly ongoing. We can estimate at 30 minutes from now.
Well, that was our colleague Augustine Coley. Augustine, thank you very much. We'll get back to you for the latest update before we take a leave of the studios. But in the meantime, Abdullah, it seems we have another guest on the line, of course, an election observer, and who is no other than James Lahai. James Lahai is a West Africa Election Observer Network, and he's currently online. Abdullah, we have James online.
Hello, good evening, James.
Yeah, good evening.
How are you today, and how's it been for you and the team in Abidjan?
Yeah, it's been very busy, moving around all institutions, visiting other institutions that have set up situation rooms and who have observers on the field and are using technology in capturing data and also processing that data.
So you've mentioned I mean, things that I think are really common, but most recent. I would like for you to expatiate more how technology has really helped in coordination, data collection, and filtering in today's election in Cote d'Ivoire.
Well, I visited one app, and one app deployed observers from the field. They are mainly following up on.
Hello, James.
Checking.
James, I don't know where you are at this particular point in time, but perhaps you may just have to readjust your phone placement a bit, or just move a bit for better clarity.
Are you comfortable now?
Yes, it's better now. It's better. Please carry on.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that we went around Abidjan observing police stations randomly various communities, and in the afternoon we decided to visit organizations and set up situation rooms where we followed up observers that they deployed on the field. One F was one set organization. They are actually doing fact checking on fake news and also observing incidences of violence across the country. And the other institution was the Human Rights Commission, the National Human Rights Commission. They were following up on human rights violations, and we also had a problem solved with mechanism of strategy by moving information about incidences from the field to the Electoral Commission for the intervention of the Electoral Commission to ensure that such incidences do not adversely affect the outcome of the electoral process.
Share with us, Mr. James, what were some of the findings that altogether the institutions that you visited, the areas that you went to, or some of the findings that you have that you think for now are not really made known on mainstream media that you want to share with us?
Well, I have not been following up what mainstream media is sharing. The one thing I we found out was the issue of the low turnout. Even as up to 5 p.m. when it was just 1 hour to the close of food, there were no queue. Almost all the police stations in the city, and the number of voters who had voted in the police stations we visited was very, very low. So if what we saw is a reflection of the national picture, then the turnout for this election is extremely, extremely low for determinant of a president of a country. And then also, we did not see so much of other political parties deploying past agents, because the law makes provision for political parties to deploy party agents to serve as their eyewitnesses in the polling station. But it was only the ruling party present in almost all the polling stations. The Electoral Commission did very well in their voting gender balance. The gender balance is not just like to prepare the women to be ordinary staff of the funds, but there was a percentage of private officers, we call them residents here in the police station. They are women. Most of them were all young, and I think
well,
and also in all police stations that we visited, voting materials were present. What was a bit abnormal was the fact that the polling booth was situated in a manner that compromised the secrecy of the ballot.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. James Lai of the West Africa Election Monitoring Team. We would have loved to stay longer with you, but connectivity is kind of poor. But we'll try to get back to you if we can, when we can, before the close of this very broadcast. Otherwise, we'll get to feature in our subsequent news bulletin to provide us with updates.
It's rather unfortunate that the connectivity, like you said, has been a problem because we could not hear the sound clearly. But he was saying some very, very important things that he was saying as an observer on the ground. So he has first-hand information, but it's not unfortunate like the connectivity was the problem there. But in the meantime, yes, you want
just to before then, well, at least I'm not saying we heard James, even though we didn't hear it clearly, but at least wearing the headphone here, I think I got him clearer or better. So if anything, it means that the turnout rate, no matter how impressive it was, according to James, it's not all that impressive. Meaning, the election commission had registered 8.7 million eligible voters. Who knows? It could be less than 5 million at the end of the day that went to the polls. But he also talked about gender representation, at least that was fair. And he also talked about the presence of polling materials and electoral staff across polling stations, except for minor incidents that he talked about. And recall, Francis Boniface, WADR's community manager in Abidjan, has said the same, that except for a few locations, elections there almost passed peacefully.
Yes, indeed, almost passed peacefully. Now, Abdullah, we'll continue our series on sectorial focus on the Ivorian society as millions in Cote d'Ivoire and tens of thousands in the diaspora go to the polls today to elect a new president. Previously aired reports that provide details on Abidjan's growth and development in the areas of gender, agriculture, health, and sanitation. However, sharing a common border terrorist plagued nation, governance issue, and mistrust against the justice system. How has the Coco Nation performed in the security and justice sector? Well, here is a report by Usman Omar.
Since the post-election crisis of 2011, which left thousands dead, Cote d'Ivoire has undergone a profound transformation in terms of governance. The outgoing president, Alassane Ouattara, made good governance in all sectors a top priority to radically transform the country. Over the years, successive technocratic governments have accelerated development. Several major projects have been launched across the country, and numerous infrastructures have emerged with an impressive road network by West African standards. A plan was implemented to attract investors back, and many have since returned in large numbers. The fight against corruption has been intensified through the Clean Hands operation, leading to arrests in the public administration and helping to clean up public finances. The administration has also been modernized. After 26 years of absence, Cote d'Ivoire now sits on the United Nations Security Council, a sign of its regained diplomatic credibility. With the revival of its economy, the country plays a leading role in the sub-region to the point that it is often accused of being over-indebted, something economists say is not true. Babo Mesa is an economist.
Le pays n'est pas surendetté, mais il faut faire très attention sur ces paramètres.
The country isn't excessively indebted, but it's crucial to closely monitor its financial parameters. According to established criteria, such as the convergence standards of organizations like ECOWAS and UEMOA, as well as international benchmarks, the recommended debt limit should not exceed 70%. Why is this important? If a country crosses this threshold, it is considered over-indebted, which raises concerns about whether its economy can sustain itself and repay the debt. The call for caution, particularly in African nations, stems from the fragile state of their economic mechanisms. For example, Cote d'Ivoire is nearing the 70% limit, which is alarming enough to urge immediate action. While the situation isn't critical yet, this threshold provides a clear warning that further borrowing should be approached carefully.
One of Cote d'Ivoire's main challenges remains security. The country shares borders with states heavily affected by terrorism. For years, the Ivorian government has been implementing programs to empower communities in border areas to prevent the infiltration of terrorist groups. The army has been strengthened, as has security cooperation with neighboring countries and foreign armies. Security is, in fact, one of the reasons that motivated President Alassane Ouattara to run for a fourth presidential term. Geoffroy Kwao is an Ivorian political analyst.
There is a pressing security concern in the sub-region due to frequent terrorist activity affecting areas surrounding us. Neighboring countries such as Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger experience near-daily incidents linked to this movement. Even Cote d'Ivoire has faced attacks by terrorist groups, notably in 2016, with additional incursions in the northern part of the country.
Nevertheless, by regaining peace, stability and sustained growth, Cote d'Ivoire has become, in 15 years, a model of resilience and development in Africa. In early October, the government launched a platform allowing citizens to consult government achievements from 2011 to this year, 2025.
Usman Omar there with a report on governance and security about Cote d'Ivoire. Abdullah, a very interesting and important one there.
Yeah, I think what really stands out for me is the fact that Cote d'Ivoire shares border with Mali. And for as long as we know, since 2012, when it started in Mali, the insurgency, it only spilled over in Niger and Burkina Faso. Cote d'Ivoire has had, I think, 1 or 2 recorded incidents of terrorism, but so far the country has stayed away from that and was able to shield the population from insurgency. I think it's one good, remarkable achievement.
Indeed, and we hope and pray that it continues in that manner. Abdullah, meanwhile, since coming to power, Alassane Ouattara has placed the youth at the heart of his government's policies. Education has not been left out either. Several initiatives have been launched to meet the expectations in these two key sectors. However, despite the efforts made, many challenges remain. Young people and education stakeholders have spoken out and shared their expectations. More details with Augustine Coley.
Nous allons renforcer et accélérer.
We will strengthen and accelerate our support system for our young people through numerous actions, including the strengthening and expansion of a second chance schools for those who left the education system too early or who wish to reorient themselves. Second, improving the employability of our vocational and university training system. 3. Accelerate the construction of sports and recreational infrastructure. And fourth, strengthening the supervision and direct financing of youth projects.
Des projets jeunes.
On December 31, 2022, Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara made this statement. Several projects were announced as part of the government's youth program covering the period 2023 to 2025. 2 years later, the Responsible and Conscious Youth of Cote d'Ivoire, JRCCR, draws a positive assessment. Jarasuba Ibrahim, its president.
The attack on the Ivorian youth today is still the same. The youth sessions must be taken by the President of the Republic before he can come to power. This issue has always been addressed. And today, with the figures we have today from the Ministry of Youth, I think that even if Greece is in progress, there is something to be done. I think a lot has been done.
Despite somewhat positive record, Ivorian youth remain unsatisfied. They expect more investment from the candidate who will emerge victorious in the October 25 presidential election. In this context, Jarasoba Ibrahim says,
today, when we talk about indigenous people, I think it's behind the construction of units and the financing of projects. The GACCI, the Indigenous Generations of Cote d'Ivoire, is first and foremost for us and for the cohesion within the units. Because today, when we talk about projects and talk about youth sessions, I know there are already a couple in the country. Our first request is to first ask our first members of parliament in this country, or political parties, to first take the pair, and I think that from there, things can move forward.
Another pillar of Alassane Ouattara's governance is education. During his inauguration in December 2020, he declared that education, training, and youth employment will be top priorities. 5 years later, several voices are calling for a reform of the education sector. Antoine Chiemoko Asali is an Ivorian member of parliament.
The question we ask ourselves is what is the mission we have assigned to our own education systems by training children who graduate only to end up unemployed because the training they have is totally inadequate for the job market, and how can we reinvent all of this? Today, the Ivorian education system has collapsed, raised the level of teachers because our country today recruits teachers with BEPC, which is Higher National Diploma. That is the 9th grade, which is not at all in line with the international standards.
The Ivorian government had signed a social truce with teachers for the 2022 to 2027 period. This agreement required the fulfillment of certain demands, including the payment of arrears, the increase of allowances, among others. Despite the signing of this protocol, teachers' unions staged protests in 2024, a situation denounced by the Ivorian government. In April 2025, further strikes were observed. To end these protests, the Ivorian government committed to dialogue through the Public Service Advisory Committee. However, while the unions have suspended their strike notice, they remain vigilant, warning that they could resume protests if the state's commitments are not honored.
Augustine Coley there with that report on youth and education sector.
Very well. Just before we round up our fourth and last edition of the special election coverage in Cote d'Ivoire, we have Bram Posthumous. Good evening, Bram.
Good evening. Hope everybody is fine. Hope all is well.
All is well, Bram. We should be asking you that. What do you think is at stake today as Cote d'Ivoire yet again, as to its democratic history or credentials or journey?
It's been mostly quiet. It's been mostly calm. There were a few incidents here and there in some places, but on the whole, I have to say that it's been remarkably quiet and remarkably disciplined, remarkably calm, if only because there was a 44,000 strong security force consisting of army personnel and police out and about to make sure that nothing untoward happened, and they've been patrolling heavily around the town to make sure, and around the country actually, to make sure that nothing untoward happened. So it seems to have worked to the extent that there have been no major incidents reported. Obviously now we have to wait until the results come in, and then another ball game opens, obviously.
But well, do you see anything changing? I mean, given the current security arrangement, Bram.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely been the main thing. The fact that the government announced not only that there were 44,000 army and police personnel out and about patrolling and making sure no trouble was being stirred up, and secondly, obviously, also the fact that the government has made it very clear, and they've used this specific word actually when they made this announcement, that the repression was going to begin. So yes, absolutely. I mean, people knew exactly what to expect from the security forces. People knew exactly what to expect from the government. So in that sense, it's no surprise that things were very quiet because of this repression that was pre-announced.
Well, I kind of smiled a bit because you said the government reiterated and repeated that there's going to be a repression. But Bram, do you also think that this would have affected the turnout rate or the turnout rate of voters? At today's polls.
I'm sorry, I'm getting an immense amount of interference from another channel on your side, so I'm afraid you'll have to repeat the question.
Okay, so let me repeat my question, Bram. Sorry about that. I guess it's the network. But let me just say, do you foresee or imagine that because of the so-called repression announced by the government and, of course, the deployment of 44,000 troops, that it affected the voter turnout rate today?
Well, I mean, it's the repression is real. There's absolutely no question about it. I mean, I was about town today and I saw absolutely tons of patrols. Even the more affluent parts of town were being heavily patrolled by all these various, the alphabet soup of security forces that is out and about here. So in that sense, it's absolutely clear that there was repression and it was expected. The other thing, obviously, is now that how much of that system, how much of that apparatus is going to remain in place after the elections? It's impossible to tell. There's two things you need to realize here, I think. The first is that this is the last roll of the dice when it comes to the ruling party and the ruling family, the WADR family, which is solidly in power and is widely expected to win the next election. So that means that there are all sorts of things that need to be safeguarded, if not, put in a safe place, if you like. Both the business interest and the political legacy, both of them need to be assured. So that's number one. And number two, that needs to be done without any disturbance. So obviously, there is every interest to make sure that, one, there is no public disturbance when it comes to holding the elections. And number two, there are no annoying journalists asking annoying questions about what's happening to the way the country is run. So these are the two things that you need to keep in mind. Repression goes both ways. It goes towards the order on the street and the fact that investigative journalism is all but impossible here.
Wow, I mean, you've said it all, Bram, and we're almost out of time. I wish we really had you connected much earlier. We'll be talking more. But one last question, just briefly, Bram. Ouattara is seeking a full term in office, and the opposition has said it is unconstitutional, but he had actually based his decision on two key primary areas. First is economy, second, security. What would you say about the security aspect? Briefly, Bram.
Well, very briefly, I mean, the economy has been performing well, but the thing is that the economy hasn't delivered the actual distribution of wealth. This is where the main issue is. We've got a big underclass of the have-nots who have not profited from the wonderful economic figures and the economic performance of the country. In terms of security, there are a number of aspects. Number one is already what we've talked about, the activities of the opposition and the activities of political opponents of the current government, which is going to remain in power. But we've also have to consider the neighbors, especially the hostile AES states in the Sahel, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, who don't like the current government, who don't like this president, and who may be harboring armed dissidents. And that's obviously a situation that's being very, very closely watched.
Interesting.
Many thanks, Bram Posthumus, Regional Security Analyst. We'll be talking to you more in our subsequent bulletins, Bram.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, then. Well, this is how far we can go. It's been a whole day of broadcast. We've been doing this, every other year. Each time it's election time. I start with much energy, I start with much enthusiasm, but when it comes to a close, I become emotional because this today is the history of a country, the history of a community, the history of our people, and the future of our generations yet unborn. This today has the potential to make or break millions of people for decades and decades to come. So it is crucial, it is important that Cote d'Ivoire gets it right.
Of course, it is very crucial, even more than crucial that Cote d'Ivoire gets it well. And from the preliminary reports we are getting, it looks like Cote d'Ivoire will get it better. And this is what we are yearning for as a people, as a community. And like you said, it can be very emotional to see a West African country going to the polls, everything in a peaceful manner. For me, that is a wonderful feeling.
Well, that's how far we can go. The French team will be coming in shortly. I think we've even eaten a bit into the time. But just so you know, we have a previous live broadcast on YouTube and Facebook. If anything at all that you've missed, please, you can log on to our website, WADR.org, and visit Facebook, WADR English, to follow up on all our broadcast reports, interviews, and of course, images, just so you know that you've not missed out at all. I'm Abdullahi Hassan.
And I am Sankolo Janko. It's been an absolute pleasure to give you updates on Cote d'Ivoire's election.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention?
Today is Cote d'Ivoire's presidential election. Join us for live coverage, debates and reports. Minutes by minute as the election transpires. 5 candidates, 1 seat. The race to the Ivorian presidency is on. Incumbent Alassane Ouattara campaigns to retain his seat. Main rival and the second female on the list, former First Lady Simone Gbagbo, and 3 other contenders vie for the presidency. Today, over 8 million registered voters will deliver their verdicts on who becomes Cote d'Ivoire's next leader. Join West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar and online WADR.org, YouTube and Facebook for a full day's coverage starting 6 a.m. Cote d'Ivoire decides, WADR covers.